Hello and welcome to episode 55 of the Sean McGuinness podcast. Hope you are all well. Thank you for the feedback on the last podcast I did with one of my clients, Emma, as we talked about her life-changing journey so far. It obviously never ends, but it does get easier when you put those right habits in place like we talked about. And I think it definitely hit home with a lot of people, because people kind of go on along the journey and struggle with certain aspects and think it's only them that struggle with it. But in fact, like when I talk to my clients, I'll be hearing the same stuff over and over that people struggle with, which is why I find it a great help, and hopefully other people did, as you said, that you look at other people who have been along that same journey and struggle with the same thing. It's very relatable. And it helps you along, that you can get there and give you that self-efficacy and confidence that you can do it. So, yes. And it kind of brings us into topics of today's podcast. I want to talk about biggest kind of mistakes I see people make when it comes to fat loss, especially from dealing with hundreds of people and continue to do to this day. And in fact, when it comes to my online coaching, we are actually opening up slots to our next intake, closing July 2nd. So go over to my Instagram page and livelongperformance.com and check that out. So today's podcast, in no particular order, we're going to look at these mistakes, but ones which I see over and over and over again. So there's definitely common themes, commonality between all these things. And if you find yourself saying, yes, that's me, it will give you some stuff to work on, okay? In no particular order, I actually got the old school pen and paper out for this one and have my little notebook in front of me. And yes, here we go. Okay, so no particular order. One of the biggest ones I see, first of all, is people not being able to handle weighing themselves. And it's not typically that they have bad relationship on the scales. They may think that, but they just don't know how to actually interpret the numbers on that scales. And when we begin to interpret those numbers properly, we can use that as one of the best ways of gauging our progress in terms of fat loss. You expect the scale number, if your goal is weight loss, fat loss, to go down every week, every day. And you have it in your head that if it doesn't, that you've done something wrong. What I encourage for people that have this is, first of all, I actually like my clients weighing frequently, so they weigh every day. If you are the type of person that goes bananas when you get on the scale and you've done everything right and it's a bit up, I would definitely encourage this. Weigh yourself every day. And what you can actually do, if we take a step back, and we first need to look at the expectations in terms of fat loss. If someone's in around a 20 to 30% calorie deficit, which is what most of the calculations will be, you will be expected to lose, on average, 0.5 to 1% of weight per week. So if someone's 70 kilos, that could be anywhere from 350 grams to 0.7, okay, to 700 grams. And people go, oh my God, that's not enough. I've done everything. I've nailed my steps. All we're trying to do with these calculations is make sure we lose the majority of our weight from fat tissue. We want to maintain that muscle tissue. So if you see people at the biggest loser where they lose an enormous amount of weight, they're going to look terrible at the end, because the majority of that is going to be muscle mass. So we want to maintain that muscle while we lose the fat around it. So obviously, if we're doing it properly, we're getting our weight training in, we're eating enough protein, that's protective of muscle tissue, thus allowing us to lose that fat around us. And again, it's easy to get caught up in weight loss. I'm going to talk about in a bit other ways to gauge your progress as well, in terms of how we look, measurements, etc. So that will be your expectation, 0.5 to 1% of body weight per week. And what we could do, you could actually graph that out, or you could have that in the back of your head. Weigh yourself every day. The software you use for my online face-to-face clients does this automatically. It actually graphs the way out, but you can do it yourself, and I'm sure a lot of people are whizzes when it comes to Excel or graphs or whatever way you want to do it. Graph your weight. What's going to happen? It's going to go down. It's going to go back up. It's going to go down. It's going to go back up. It's going to go down. It's going to go back up. But as you go, it's slowly going to average or linearly come down. And it's only when you actually plot that and see the trend of it going down, obviously if you're in a deficit and you have all your habits enabling you to do so, you'll be able to see this. So if you have a line where we talked about that 0.5 to 1% of body weight a week, and you start your weight, and this is the straight line that you're expecting, well, if you graph your weight out, you're going to constantly be outside that line. You're going to be below it, up it, below it, up it, but it's going to start to go down, and you will see that trend. So that's the first thing, because the amount of times I see people go bananas and then actually go off the walls because they see that number go up because they think it's down to them. Well, no, that's what's supposed to happen. We need to understand the concept that you can still gain weight on the scales having lost fat. Okay, let me repeat that. You can still gain weight on the scales having lost fat. So you could have a week where you have lost fat because you're in a calorie deficit, but for many reasons the weight on the scale has gone up through water fluctuations. So the main ways that water is going to fluctuate: you had a high carb meal, for every gram of carbohydrates it drags 3 or 4 grams of water in to be stored in your muscle cells. So if you had a pizza, it could be a kilo up. And it's Monday, I'm recording this today. People get on the scales Monday, which is probably the worst fucking day to weigh yourself. It's the worst day because you've gone 2 days that are out of the ordinary habit wise. You're going to have meeting, the food quality is not going to be as good as during the week. You probably eat out, more sodium, which is going to retain more water, more carbohydrates. You probably haven't trained as much, which means you're going to have stored more of that carbohydrates and water in your muscles, because when you train you burn it off. So Monday will be your heaviest day of the week. As you go throughout the week and that water weight drops from training and just going back onto your nutrition, which generally involves like medium to lower carb, less sodium or just enough. Usually Friday, Saturday morning will be your lowest weight of the week, which is why, again, I encourage people to do this. So don't compare your Friday weight to your Monday weight. Friday will be your lower in most cases. Monday will be your highest weight. And then people go off the walls and go, oh, my weight's up, what's the point? I'm just going to stuff this and go off plan. And that comes back to our expectations around it. Emma touched on a topic where and this relates back when we're looking at weight as a progress of measurement. Fat loss plateaus. Well, it's not in fact a plateau. It's what Lauren McDonald refers to as the whoosh effect, where you might be going along losing fat, but for whatever reason it's not reflecting on the scales. And so you say you've been on your nutrition and training for 2-3 weeks, nothing's happened, and you go, well, what's the point in this? Stuff this. There's been hundreds of occasions throughout the years I've trained Emma and many other clients where she's texting me, what the fuck, like, excuse the language, but nothing's changing. What do I do? And I know she's been on a deficit, and I just go, just stick it out, it's going to drop, give it another week or two. And she'll listen to me, and then get another week or two, and then that scale might drop a bit more drastically. Because just like I said, your weight will probably drop on average 0.5 to 1% of body weight a week, considering you're in that deficit. But what it will not do is it will not drop weekly. So Lauren McDonald calls the whoosh effect, where you're losing fat but the water isn't dropping, and you finally get to the stage where you've lost fat, the scale's still the same, then you wake up one morning and then you drop like 2-3 kilos, whatever it is. Everyone's a bit more drastic. Some people are more drastic than others, might I say. So that's a whoosh effect. So it's not going to drop every week when it comes to that. So don't freak out. Keep consistent to it. Give it a bit more time. When it comes to women, like we talked about, menstrual cycle wise, this becomes even a bit more complicated when using the scales. What you'll have to do is you'll have to compare the average of week 1 of your menstrual cycle to the average of week 1 of the next month, because week 1 and week 2 of your menstrual cycle, they're generally going to be the lower weight weeks, whereas the 3rd week and the 4th week, there your weight's going to be all over the place. And she used to gain, I'd say, around 2-3 kilos during that 3rd and 4th week. And again, if you were looking, saying, well, I'm eating good, I'm on my Jeffers, I'm training, and you get into that 3rd and 4th week and your weight's going up, you're going to be, well, what's the point in this? Stuff this. And combined with all those other factors going on, hunger and brain chemical wise, telling you to eat more high calorie food, that's a recipe for disaster as well. So we need to have this in the back of our head. So understanding that comes back again when people have made adjustments to their nutrition. Don't just say, oh, it's been a week, I need to drop my calories again. Give it 2 to 3 weeks. And if you're a girl and you gain more on your menstrual cycle, you may need to wait until a whole full month to be able to see if that has worked, because that's when your weight will be at its most accurate. Then we look at behavioural change. Behavioural change is obviously changing the habits to allow us to get into a calorie deficit, in terms of moving more, in terms of eating less calories. And that's when it comes to that. So one of the biggest mistakes I see people make, especially those who are beginning a plan, is they'll try to change everything too soon. There's kind of two trains of thought. And when I had Dr. Melissa Davis on, a neurobiologist, and she works for a great nutrition company, she had this saying where start with the easier habits to change, and that will build up a momentum to get to the kind of harder stuff. So if it's like, you might start off with what is the easiest thing to do where you're at the moment, whether it get more steps, whether it get a little bit more protein. And then when you feel like you're building that confidence and yes, I can do this, that creates a little momentum, and then you can get to the harder habits, which may be like tracking your calories, or which may be getting to the gym, whatever that is for you. So one of the biggest mistakes I see is trying to change everything too soon, and today's a Monday, and most people are going to try to do the same today. Had a few people, I actually wrote a post on this last night, lots of people replying being like, that's me. It's Monday, let's try change the world, but when it comes to Thursday or Friday, you're back where you started. So don't try change everything. Pick one thing, build your confidence on that, then get to the next thing. And what we see with transformations, when you're looking like week to week or month to month, your lifestyle mightn't be different per se, but if you've been doing this for a few months or even 2 to 3 years, well, when you compare where you started to where you are now, those little habits all build up, and suddenly you've eked out a whole different lifestyle. When I go back to our chat with Emma, she looks at training, and if you try to get where she was originally and just flip the script and do everything she does now, she would absolutely crumble and it would finish her. And she might be go okay for a few weeks, but then when life hits, like most people, stress makes you kind of go back to your old habits, the old part of the brain. All those areas of brain involved in discipline and willpower are switched off, so you just go straight back to where you were. Versus she's built those habits over time, what she does now, and replaced the ones which were detrimental for her. So now when life hits, it's like, it doesn't matter. She still goes to the gym. She still gets her steps. She still eats a certain way, because that's so ingrained. So that's what we want to think about. Let's have a look at training. Let's have a swig of my coffee before we go. Oh, sorry if there's any noises that makes. I can't remember who showed me this. Is it the phenomenon where people will get a microphone and like chew food into the microphone, and people get off on that? So they get like big gherkins and then chomp into it and then chew it, and people are making a lot of money from doing this, just random foods. Anyway, The world's your oyster, as they say. So training wise, some of the biggest mistakes I see people make, and obviously we're looking at fat loss, but in terms of training, my idea of a training plan is one which alleviates any aches and pains that are in my realm of doing that. If not, I'll refer out. Getting the body moving good, making sure our technique's good. There are certain anatomical ways of movement that people fall into in regards to certain muscles get you tight, certain muscles get you weak in today's world from kind of sitting down, we can say. And that may be a blanket statement. A lot of time people say it's not actually not sitting down, it's just not moving enough. So as a bit of a tangent, you could probably sit down and like what you would deem as really bad posture, and sometimes I do, I'll slouch, or it'll be the most terrible posture, you look like a sloth sitting in the chair. But if you're moving correctly outside of that, and if you're moving enough in terms of steps, and that's allowing your hips to open up and your that normal gait cycle that we should be moving in, it actually probably will, you'll be fine. You won't get any bad stuff from that movements. So what we're trying to do in the gym is look at a lot of the ways people are deficient in moving wise, and then give that to them. Again, as a blanket statement, a lot of people may complain of some kind of back tightness or back pain due to them just being a little bit too much hyperextended in the back. So we just think of like kind of like duck arse position where your pelvis is moved back, your chest is out, and your lower back's in that curved position. Think of it like an Instagram model position where they do all their pictures, and actually when you train these people, their backs are jammed up from being in that position all the time, sticking their boobs out and sticking their bum back. And that's what a lot of people fall into. And if we think of, look, your back extensors, your back muscles on your lower back, because you're in the hyperextended position, your back's just getting jammed up the whole day. And then people start going trying to stretch the back or going to chiros, and it's very short term. Very short term. What we're trying to do is look at like the pelvis position, your back, and then get that. In most parts, if we say to a more neutral position, more straight back position, or at least strengthen the muscles involved. So if you are in that duck arse position, you have enough range of motion that you're not going to get into pain, or the right muscles are strong enough to be able to support that if needed. So if people are in this position, generally they'll go into the gym and they'll do what again is deemed as good exercises. There are good exercises when applied to the right person. So it could be a barbell back squat, it could be a barbell deadlift, it could be a bench over barbell row, it could be a standing barbell shoulder press. All great movements. The problem, we're going to get a person who's already jammed up in those back muscles, and then what we're doing, we're putting them into movements that are going to jam them up further. So barbell back squat, if we think of the bar on our back, our chest is out, and then the cue is stick your bum back. Well, you're just jamming your back up even more, and all you're doing is really bending from your hips. So you probably just feel your lower back the whole time. Same way, any kind of hip hinge movement, deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, good mornings. What we're doing there is pushing our hips back, which puts us more into extension. Bent over barbell row. And if we look at like a Les Mills class, pump class, these are all the movements. And I used to see people come out holding their back. Again, not saying these movements are bad, but we need to give the body the right stimulus to strengthen up the muscles that are too weak to be able to support us, which will take pressure off the back and potentially stretch out some areas that are a bit tighter from being in that position. Bench over barbell row, we bend over, while back muscles have to be cranking to hold us in that position, which again we're putting load in front of and making that even more. Most people do a plank, they're just staying in that position. So we can see a lot of time people are going in with the intention of weight training, which is going to maintain muscle. Yes, perfect, but we also want to get that person moving correctly and alleviate those pains. So just like I put up a post last week where you can see it on video, it makes it a bit better, we might pick different movements within that if you are kind of jammed up that will allow you to move. So what we're trying to do is look at the same movement. So we'll have some kind of squat pattern, some kind of hip hinge pattern, we'll have some kind of pressing, pulling pattern. That's no problem within that. But for someone who's in a bit more of an anterior pelvic tilt, we could differ movements. So for example, I could give that person, say, a goblet squat where the weight's in front and you can squat down, maintain upright. And when the dumbbell or kettlebell's in front, it's going to automatically stop you from leaning back with that chest out cue, so you can squat down nicely. And have a look at the video I put up. The same goes for, say, like a deadlift. Instead of a deadlift, we may do a Bulgarian split squat. Okay, it's going to target similar muscles, the glutes, but what it's going to do, single leg stuff, we're going to stretch us out. We're going to stretch those hips out because they're tight from sitting down all day, and it's going to take the pressure of the lower back. Okay, if we look at barbell shoulder press, it could be like a seated incline chest press, or it could be a kneeling shoulder press. Same goes for the bench over barbell row. Could be just like a chest supported row in one of the machines, or you could use a kneeling cable row, something that keeps your pelvis in a straight position, takes the pressure off. So we'll do more of a training episode. I did one before already, but yeah, that's kind of just of that. One of the biggest mistakes I see people will get a training program. Now I've done it. I have heaps of men's health magazines here just simply because I enjoy reading them. But before I knew anything, I used to get the workouts from that of exercises. If I'd done those exercises with, say, a person who is strong in the right muscles and in more of a neutral position, that's a great workout. But for someone who is a bit more sedentary and is weaker in certain places, tighter in certain places, and a bit more overloaded in that back muscles already, it's probably not the best workout. So we always want our workouts and our exercise to be measured for the person, tailored for that person. If this is you, I would always advise to get some kind of assessment before you train, or at least take these things into account. Which is why even with my coaching program, one of the harder things for me was coaching people online where I couldn't assess them face to face. So now what I do is I've adapted it. So I'll get on a Zoom or a Skype before we start, and I'll do my movement screening from there. That allows me to tailor the workout, rather than see too many times people get online programs and yeah, they'll lose weight, which is brilliant, and they're in the gym, and unbeknownst to them, they're doing more damage than good with these exercises because it's just not suited to them, and then suddenly they may do a disc or they may get injured, and that throws them off the weight loss plan, which is what we don't want to see. So we want to tailor the training the same as nutrition. Okay, we'll probably have to do a part 2 in this looking at it, but we'll get through some of the main ones. Let me have a look. Next biggest mistake I see is people go too extreme. So they associate fat loss with kind of that self-deprivation, extreme discipline, which is what the magazines tell you, which is probably what I've been fed. And probably what, when you've tried to lose fat before, you probably tried to fucking starve yourself. And you've probably lost weight, and suddenly when your biology kicks in and tells you to eat again, you mistake that for discipline and go, shit, if I was any more discipline, I would have stuck to that plan. No, it's like trying to hold your breath and kill yourself. It's not going to happen. Your body will force you to breathe. So it's the same with these things. When we try to go too low calorie, too extreme, your mechanisms to eat are going to kick in, and they're going to make you eat, and you're going to mistake that, I binged out, I just lack discipline. No, your body forced you to binge out because that's what it's supposed to do. It's what's supposed to happen. So more is not always better in terms of fat loss. If you drop your calories too much, all you're doing is creating a seesaw effect. And on the other end of that seesaw is you going to binge out. So when you go too low, your hunger and appetite are going to kick up, and that's going to force you to binge out. So what we're trying to look for is a nice little way where we're creating a slight deficit like we talked about before, that allows us to keep a hunger and appetite in check for long enough to be able to get good results. So, and then taking into account, you could go low calorie for a few weeks. That's no doubt about it. Could on use a bit of discipline. You could grind it out for a few weeks, but after that, as you go on, as you lose fat, one of the hormones involved in appetite regulation, leptin, is in our fat cells. So when you start to lose a lot of weight, your leptin levels are getting lower, and what that does is drives up your appetite. So leptin is in your fat cells, but there's a signal to your brain, your hypothalamus and kind of stuff, those areas of brain that are involved in you not starving. So when your leptin levels start to get a bit low, that signal goes to your brain saying leptin levels are getting a bit low, and your hypothalamus will start to increase your hunger, increase your appetite, and it'll actually make you less full. All these hormones like CCK. So you're going to eat, and you're not going to feel less satisfied, and thus you're going to eat a lot. It's going to be like an empty pit, and then suddenly you're back to where you started. So going too extreme, there may be a place for it in terms of if you have a wedding or if you are a movie star, which I know a lot of the listeners are on this show, let's be honest. Or if you are very obese, there are occasions for very big calorie deficits. But if you just want to get a bit leaner, or you've tried it before, that extreme effort doesn't work, go to a slight calorie deficit, focus on the long term, and focus on those habits and behaviors, and take away at it. We think extreme, we think, okay, that means I need to really suffer, as I said. So a lot of people will take every bit of happiness out of the plan. They'll look at these high calorie foods, and we're always trying to get a nice balance. If I'm looking at someone's plan, I'll look at that lifestyle, and if they go and have a few drinks every Friday night, I'm going to say, perfect, okay, that's fine. Then they might go have a pizza on Saturday, cool. Again, we're getting that aspect of socializing in, which creates happiness, which will maintain kind of mentally our brain to keep us in the game, keep us happy. What a lot of people do, and what I've done in the past with people, is I go, no, we're going strict. Friday night drinks have to stop. You're going to eat chicken and broccoli, and then you can even forget about that pizza. That has to stop, blah, 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 blah. And all I'm doing is, I've just taken that one bit of happiness out of that person's whole week. So what's going to happen now? Well, they're going to start to search for happiness through other means. They're going to increase. First of all, it's the aspect of mental restriction. We're mentally telling them to not to do something, which makes us want to do it more. And then they'll also try to fill that void with food. So we're increasing the chance to do that. So look at your lifestyle. You don't need to take all those bits of happiness out. If it's a bit of cake you have every night, we can try to account for that, to maintain that, to keep it in. So we're not trying to get a nice balance of, yes, we're losing fat, but we're keeping the levels of happiness in. And it is normal in today's world to eat food for happiness. What we're trying to do is just not take that to the extreme. So if you have a bit that you do every night, if it's a bit of chocolate, cool. Try to keep that in, or maybe look at getting a lower calorie version of it, because if I give you a little bit of chocolate every night, you're less likely to binge out at the end of the week. And then you're slowly fitting those habits and behaviors in. If you like a pizza every Saturday, cool, fit that pizza in. You may opt for a lower calorie version, less cheese, whatever it is, or you may just lower your calories throughout that day. If you have a few drinks on Friday night, you may skip breakfast, have a salad for lunch, and save your calories for those drinks, and then get back on it Saturday. Don't let it carry over. Suddenly you're losing weight, you're happy, and then there may get to be a time where you go, do you know what, I don't even need that pizza on Saturday, or I don't need those drinks. Your social circle may change, whatever. You may be into people who are more into fitness when you get to that stage, but you may have replaced that with actually training and getting your happiness from endorphins, or going on hikes or something, what else. But the key is, like I said, keep the happiness in there, let that person decide, fit it in, don't just take it away. We don't want to negatively associate losing fat with what people do, which is all those negative kind of emotions. What else do we have? Let's go one more for today. Let's look at health foods. So the biggest mistake I see people make, and again, it's not your fault at all. These food companies pay billions and trillions and however much money they have to hire the best people in terms of copywriting, in terms of psychology, biopsychology, psychology of marketing, to be able to get us to eat these foods and obviously eat more of them, which is the goal of their company. So they see whatever's with the trend. If the trend is people trying to eat more protein, they'll put added protein or lower carb, when in fact a lot of the time we're playing into their hands and we're buying these foods thinking that they're good for us in terms of a fat loss plan, but actually they're just as bad as any other processed food. And in fact, which I'll always say, and you're probably sick of me hearing me saying it, I can't remember who I heard this from, otherwise I would quote them on it, but I can't remember. Most health foods in the health aisle are junk foods in disguise. So when I say this, hyperpalatable foods are foods that you can't stop eating, and they're foods primarily made up of fats and carbs. Fats and carbs together, fats are high calorie anyway, you combine them with carbohydrates, kind of hits all those reward centers of our brain. Those food taste receptors light up, which stimulates dopamine, and all these foods have high calories as well. Okay, that's it. So if people go, oh, I need to cut down on sugar. Well, if you look at your quote unquote most favorite sugar foods, it's sugar and fat together. Chocolate bars, the most hyperpalatable foods, milkshakes, it has fats and carbs together. And when we look at these health foods, the ones that are very hyperpalatable are ones that contain carbs and fats together. Now they may tell you, oh well, this health food is from whole sources. So for example, fats, we could look at, say, almond butter or some kind of peanut butter. And then for carbohydrates, we could look at like honey, or I'm trying to think whatever else they put in these bars. Yeah, let's say honey. Or it could be like a natural carbohydrate. And that's going to stimulate the same thing. It's going to stimulate you to overeat on these foods because they're going to hit the pleasure centers of the brain. And if you look at the majority of these health foods, the ones that are overly tasty, they're going to play into the same phenomenon these food scientists are going to use when they develop these foods. Added to the fact, like I said, in terms of marketing, where they may go lower carb, higher protein, and then you actually read the food label and look at the protein in it, and it's hardly any. Most protein balls, the ones in the shops, I'm talking about, they say they're protein balls, they have about 10 grams of protein in it, and then they have about, 20-30 grams of fat, and they're all fat, and the calories are through the roof. You might as well just get a meal and a lot of the time. So my point on this, don't fall into the trap where if you think first it's a health food or it has all these jargons written on it that it's good for us. Remember, fat loss comes down to calories, so it could be very good for you in terms of its whole foods, but so is eating a tub of almond butter. Okay, it's going to be from whole sources, but you're going to blow out your whole day's calories. So don't forget, in terms of these foods especially, they're kind of junk foods more for the upper echelon, maybe higher socioeconomic people. And when I'm trying to bulk up, I get calories in. A lot of time I'll go into the health aisle because I know they're going to make it with a lot of preservatives that cause you to overeat. So I had these Veggie Chips, which are supposed to be low calorie, not when you eat a few bags of them. no. But I said, why can't I stop eating these? And I checked on it, with some kind of MSG preservative in it. Again, the same things they're putting into these. So the real health foods are the ones without a label a lot of the time. They're the fruit, the veg, they're your good source of carbohydrates, potatoes, sweet potatoes, brown rice, and then your whole foods of protein, whatever that may be. Okay, don't fall into I'm eating protein bars all day and then eating these and eating that. A lot of the time it's an easy way to blow out your calories without we're having any fiber in these foods, so they don't fill you up and again cause you to overeat. So yes, we're just going to stick on that today. Hopefully it wasn't too much. I never have the time in this laptop, so I never know how long I've rambled on for. Probably too much, says you, but hopefully that makes a bit of sense. We break this into a few parts. But yes, there you go. If you have any more questions or any things you're not sure of in terms of fat loss, nutrition, psychology, if I can answer, I'll answer it, and we can do like kind of question segment on the podcast. Like I said, our body transformation program where I teach people to get results, hold a hand along the way, support them, coach them, and use that aspect of individualization in terms of the training and nutrition to get them where they want to go and maintain those results for life. That opens sometime the end of June, but it's going to close July 2nd. So if you want to register your interest where you receive all the details, go on to the link on my bio on my Instagram page, or also you can have a look at livelongperformance.com, and we'll be releasing the details soon. So there we go, episode 55 in the books. We'll make a few part series out of this. Any other questions? DM me on Instagram or email Sean@livelongperformance.com. As always, please share the good word. Let's get the good message around, help people get results, so not following any fads or wasting their time, money, or energy. Share the podcast on your Instagram stories. Rate and review on iTunes. Let's get this good word out there. Thank you all for listening, whether you're doing your steps, working out, whether you're at home on the couch. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode.